everybody. Welcome back. Oh, you know what would look nice? That light. Let's see if I can turn this thing on. Oh, there we go. Some proper backlight and everything. This looks like a real YouTube channel. Not quite, actually. It's a total abject mess in here, and it normally is, but this is more than normal. So thank you for your patience. I'm in the middle of major spring cleaning. If you're doing spring cleaning, give us a hands up in the chat. Hooray for spring cleaning! Oh my goodness. It's so bad that when I opened my ukulele case to get my favorite uke out for this session, it wasn't in the case. And I don't even know where it went. It's like in the pile of stuff somewhere. That's bad. But when we're done with this renovation, we're going to have a beautiful little podcasting corner over there where all that mess is right now, and with a little couch, and we're just going to set up, and maybe that'll be the next time we get together. We might be in the new little podcasting corner, so that'd be fun. And the other thing about spring cleaning that I'm sure you can all relate to is that you go through boxes and boxes of your life, right? And like, so I've been finding so many relics from like the early part of my musical life and just the early part of my life in general. Some like old schoolwork that my parents had kept, and photos from elementary school. And look, here's some, I grabbed these to show you. This is from Hong Kong in 2012. These are buttons that they made for us when Anne and I were getting married, and they are just the cutest thing. There's matching buttons because we were on tour in Hong Kong, and Uke HK was hosting us there, and they made the cutest set of Anne and James buttons, and I've kept them all these years because I thought they were so cute. Anyway, I feel like I should do a whole episode of the Uketropolis Live that's just like, what's in the boxes in James's studio. Here, I'll show you one more because I do want to keep a bunch of stuff for possibly a special episode. But check this out. This is a magazine called Beautiful British Columbia from winter 1977. Look at those kids on the cover, all playing their ukuleles. This is out in BC, out in Western Canada. What a photo. And you think, oh, ukulele is really catching on these days, you know, with the kids and everything. And then you look at the date and you realize it's 1977 that photo was taken. And there's probably some more photos inside. This is when the BC ukulele program was really like getting off the ground, and I'll have to find more of these photos to share with you, but I just thought that was so cool, and that was part of my sort of ukulele history archive, especially Canadian ukulele history. The things you find in boxes. Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments in the chat. Ray says, that's what parents do. They send back all the stuff they collected. Oh my goodness. Is that true or what? So, here we are again, and we missed last month. Thank you for your understanding, for rolling with the punches, and for that reason, and because Uketropolis has just been unusually busy, we've got lots of questions, lots of great discussions happening. We've had the new resource ragalele just come out, and that's causing quite a few interesting conversations to happen It's creating many ripples in the Uketropolis community in a good way. And in fact, my interview with Saili Tonk, who is my co-author for Ragalele, just came out this morning. That interview is on the Uketropolis podcast. So if you want more behind the scenes info on Ragalele, go listen to that after you listen to this. Ragalele has been just an incredible journey. For me, it's been 3 years of learning about a musical tradition that I never thought I would be able to access myself. I thought that listening to Indian ragas was always something that I would have to do at a distance, that there was no way that I could involve myself in that music. It's a 6,000-year-old tradition, and I don't have a sitar, so what can I do except listen to Ravi Shankar and the great players and just enjoy, which I still do. But now I have this way of participating in this music, learning from that tradition, and then transposing that knowledge back into my own tradition, which has been really enlightening for me. And I hope that you'll give it a shot if you're at all curious about what Indian ragas would sound like on ukulele. Then head over to uketropolis.com/ragalele, or just go to ragalele.com and check it out. So maybe we should start with a let's see. Yes, maybe we should start with a question from Ragalele. This is from Nicholas, who's working on learning ragas himself. And there's a section called Two Worlds, One Language. And Nicholas is asking this question. He says, there's a very interesting comparison chart here between Hindustani classical and Western classical music. This is where we literally put elements of both traditions side by side, and we compare the traditions, and we try to understand what is familiar to Western players and what is unfamiliar to Western players. Before I get further into Nicholas's question, I just want to say how surprised I was when I started working with Saili. I was so surprised that some of the things I thought were going to be very challenging were actually very similar. Some of the things I thought were going to be big differences between the Indian classical tradition and the Western classical tradition, they just weren't differences at all. For example, let's just do a Mythbuster round on Indian classical music. The number one thing that people say when I tell them that I've written or co-authored this resource where you can learn Indian ragas on your ukulele, the number one thing people say is, but how can you play ragas when you don't have microtones? when you can't play the notes that are in between the frets? And I had this same thought. I thought to myself, we're never going to be able to play ragas on the ukulele because we are locked into the Western system of notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and nothing in between. We don't have all those extra notes that Indian classical musicians sing and play. And so I thought, well, this project is just, it's dead in the water. There's no way we're going to get past that. And I was really surprised to learn that fundamentally, under the surface, at the most basic level, the Indian classical tradition uses the same scale that Western musicians do. Instead of going do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, it goes sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. It's the same notes with different names. Once I learned that from Saili, I suddenly had a lot of hope. I went from zero hope to, a lot of hope that we could bring this onto the ukulele fretboard. at their most basic, these Indian ragas are very playable. They're just pentatonic. At least the ones that we've chosen to begin with in ragalele are pentatonic. They have 5 notes. That's a very playable thing on the ukulele. And that's an excerpt from one of the melodies in one of the ragas. It doesn't really sound like a sitar yet, because I'm only playing the most basic notes, the most basic version of this melody. But under the hood, Indian classical musicians are using fundamentally the same scale structure that Western musicians are. That was a huge surprise to me. Where it starts to sound different is when the musicians begin to add ornaments. The ornamentation in Indian classical music is so beautiful and deep and complex and also simple at the same time. And this is where you start moving between the notes and start to smear between the notes of the scale. You start evoking pitches that are between the frets. And we do this on the ukulele mostly by sliding. Instead of playing, I would play, I'm plucking twice, but I'm finding the notes by sliding to them instead of articulating each one. And those little moments of sparkle, that's what starts to make it sound like it's part of the Indian classical tradition. It's the ornamentation that sits on top like a layer of icing that makes everything beautiful and delicious. That's the part that elevates the basic ingredients to becoming the beautiful ragas that we hear. So I wanted to start with that because that's the number one question that I get about ragalele is how can you even play that stuff because you don't have all the notes? No, we have all the notes. We just have to add the ornamentation to get the true beauty of the melody. And by the way, a lot of the music that Western players are familiar with is microtonal. We don't notice it because we're so used to it. But you think of the blues, for example. You think of how we take a note and we bend certain notes. All those movements between like the lowered seventh up to the tonic, or from the excuse me, or from the lowered third to the major third. That's all technically microtonal. I love this topic so much I'm getting choked up. All that stuff is technically microtonal. We just don't notice it because we're so used to hearing it. There's a lot of stuff we hear in jazz or even pop music. The Hawaiian steel guitar and how it moves between the frets, or the dobro with the slide. All of that music you could think of as microtonal. So I don't want anybody to get stuck on this idea of microtonality being somehow sort of an impediment to participating in the music of the Indian classical tradition. So if I go back to Nicholas's question, he says, in terms of Applying this to a high school ukulele class, I love this. If we were attempting to be true to the style and manner of this music, excuse me, would classmates be droning on a C, and then a single student would be performing the raga? Is that how you would approach teaching ragas in a group setting? Well, that is a great question. If you want to split this up and have some students accompanying while others play the melody, here's what I would suggest. Have one student, or if one student is too much pressure for that student, you can have a small group of students. They would be playing the melody. And in behind that melody, you can accompany, not with chords, but with an imitation of the tanpura, which is the droning instrument in that tradition. And instead of just droning on a single string, you can imagine that sounding okay, but a little bit more like bagpipes. But with the tanpura, there are 4 strings, I believe, and 3 notes. And those notes are do, so, and do, where the second do is the octave higher. I think they use a second high do as well. But we can emulate the drone of the tanpura by gently playing these 3 notes. C, G, C, C, G, C. And if you had a few people playing this in sort of a calm but not completely synchronized rhythm, it would create a sort of a wash of C's and G's. And over that, you would have your soloists play the melody of the raga. We do provide in the resource, there are backing tracks so that you can all just play along and hear the accompaniment while you perform. But I love Nicholas's idea of getting the students themselves to play the accompaniment parts rather than listening to it on a backing track. And if you want to try this, either just with one person on this tanpura part, or if you have several people on this part, I think this would be a really lovely way to evoke the sound of that traditional instrument and to do it live and on the ukulele. And then in the background, you've just got this happening. Ideally, you'd have the tabla drum as well, which gives it the rhythmic structure. But Nicholas, that's what I would suggest. I hope that at some point I can hear a recording or see a video of your class performing this. I think that's a really exciting thing that you're doing to bring the music from other cultures into your classroom and onto the ukulele. Connect with those traditions that are so rich, so deep, and seem so inaccessible. And yet when you get behind the curtain, you realize, this is very much like music that I know and love, and not so far from a place where I'm comfortable. It pushes me a little bit, but not beyond. It's not beyond the pale to reach out and to make these traditions part of our own living tradition of music. So thanks, Nicholas, for the question, and I hope that helps. All right. Just checking the chat. Ray's asking about my hat. Good question. This is a prototype of a Ukeheads hat, actually, with the Ukeheads logo on it. These are not available at the moment, but I love this one, and I think we should make them available because they look great, and they're not just like, it doesn't just say Ukeheads, you know, like this could be generic enough for anybody who plays ukulele. So maybe we'll consider putting these on the website. Yeah, thanks for all the love in the chat. And as Maureen says, the mighty uke always amazes me. Me too. I'm always amazed by the versatility and how such a small instrument can encompass so much. I think it's, you know, it seems unintuitive, but you're like, oh, how can such a small instrument have such a big footprint? And it's partly because of the smallness, right? I mean, if it wasn't for the smallness of the ukulele, it wouldn't have been able to travel so far on boats over the ocean and sort of find itself embedded in so many cultures around the world. The ukulele has cousins everywhere because it was so portable. It was really like the iPod of its time. If you were going on a long trip, you would just grab your ukulele because that's where all your songs were that you wanted to take with you. They were all in this ukulele. So of course you were going to take that with you on your trip. Sometimes I tease students by saying, did you know there's more songs in this one ukulele than on all the streaming platforms in the world? You know, there's more songs in this one ukulele than there are on Spotify. There's more songs in this one ukulele than there are on Apple Music. And of course they don't believe you. But it's true. They're all in there. Now, it takes a little bit of work to get them out, but if I'm going traveling and I want to take my music with me, I'm going to bring one of these because that's where all the songs are. Let's get back to some questions here. Oh, here's one that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to do this question on a live stream because it is so hard to demonstrate or to articulate in text. So this question comes to us from Anthony, and Anthony is working on Americana ukulele, which has been a very, very popular course where students learn Travis picking, they learn clawhammer banjo style, they learn slide ukulele. It's all of the traditional American techniques, flat picking as well with a pick, bluegrass style, old time style. And this question is about Travis picking. Travis picking is that style where you keep your thumb moving steadily back and forth, usually from the third string to the fourth string. And that becomes sort of the timekeeper, the tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. And over top of that very steady rhythm, we play a melody. And that is where the magic happens. If we go, this is just a really fun style to play in, and I love it. In fact, I did an episode on Travis picking not too long ago. So if you want to get further into that, check out a few episodes ago. It was all about Travis picking. But this question is a little different. Anthony is asking a very particular question that I want to highlight because I'm sure he's not the only one thinking it. Here's what Anthony says. He says, what I would like to ask is, what right hand picking pattern should I employ if I'm not playing the melody? If I'm not playing the melody, either because I don't know the melody yet, or because I just want to accompany a singer or some other instrument, or because I just like the sound of picking the chords without the melody. So this is very interesting. Anthony says, I've seen different videos where teachers say, play this pattern throughout, but they don't play the melody at all. And Anthony goes on trying to describe what is very difficult to describe in text, which is syncopated picking patterns that sort of always work. You know, I think this is a great question because we're not always playing Travis picking in the context of a solo performance. You know, I'm not always standing up there going, and trying to juggle all of the parts all the time. Sometimes I want to have that Travis picking sound just to play in the background, just to accompany either my own singing or someone else's singing, or even another solo instrument. I could imagine a fiddle or any other, you know, a banjo or a harmonica. And I don't want to necessarily get in the way. I just want to support. But I want to have this driving rhythm of Travis picking. And I've done my best. If you are in the Americana ukulele course, I have done my best to answer this in text and to show, to explain my sort of default accompaniment pattern for Travis picking. But there's only so much you can do in text. And so here's where I wanted to demonstrate live and, you know, on camera, or at least live with audio, exactly how I do this. Because you just have to show. Show, don't tell, right? So if I was just playing, what's the song that we play? It's you got to walk that lonesome valley. You've got to walk it by yourself. Nobody else can walk it for you. You've got to walk it by yourself. Now, I could strum along with that melody, but what if I want to play it Travis style? You got to walk that lonesome valley. There's no question that I'm going to have the thumb going back and forth because that is the heartbeat of Travis picking. It wouldn't be Travis picking without the thumb alternating back and forth. And in fact, this would be a great place to start with an accompanying Travis style. So you got to walk it by yourself. Nobody else can walk it for you. You got to walk it by yourself. And in order to play the right notes at the right time, I'm fretting the entire chord as it changes. You've got to G7 it by your C. Nobody F can walk at C. You got to walk G7 by yourself. And that's how I'm playing all the right notes without really thinking about the right notes. The chord shape becomes a sort of stencil to ensure that I am playing notes that are in the chord, because even if I'm not plucking one of these strings, I'm going to fret the entire chord, and then I don't have to think about it. Essentially, I'm playing a trick on the left hand. The left hand thinks we're just strumming as usual, but the a tricky right hand is only plucking the third and the fourth strings. And that makes sure that I'm always playing something that's in the chord. It's a good insurance policy to cover all those strings. But now comes the real question, because I don't think Anthony needed help with that much. Anthony understood that, of course, I have to have the thumb going back and forth, and I have to change the chords because those are the basics of Travis picking. I think what he's wondering about is what I do with the other fingers. How do I add something, a little meat to the sandwich that doesn't distract from the vocal line, but gives a little bit more harmonic information? And this is where I had trouble describing in words. So here's what I would do, and then I'll see if I can describe it. I would do something like this. You've got to walk that lonesome valley. You've got to walk it by yourself. Nobody else can walk it for you. You got to walk it by yourself. Do you hear that extra little meat in the sandwich? It's not just this. And it's not the full-blown solo arrangement. It's more like this. I'm sort of improvising the rhythm that I'm doing, and to be honest, I'm keying off the rhythm of the melody. I'm hearing in my mind, walk that lonesome valley, you got to walk it by yourself. So I'm shadowing the melody a little bit there. But what Anthony is asking for is there like a default pattern? One that I can always rely on and that I can practice over and over until I get it really clean. Although that's a little unnatural, I think most players are going to be a little more improvisatory in what additional sparkling notes they add from this chord. I think a very good default to practice is this one that I'm playing right now. That little pattern really gives you a lot to work with. You can do this with just the thumb and the index finger. You don't need to use any other fingers on your right hand. And it starts by playing the finger with the thumb. Just like that. The finger and the thumb pinch together and you get both notes. Then the finger waits, and then it has 2 more beats. That's it. There's only 3 hits with the index finger. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now the first and the third of those hits comes right with the thumb. So those are pretty straightforward. Just the first and the third, hits with the index finger would sound like this. That's not beyond anyone's ability to try. I'm going back and forth with the thumb on the C and the G, and then I join in with the open C string with the high C. I don't do it every time I hit the low C because I feel that would be monotonous. So 4 beats of the thumb. I hit 1 with the index finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. That is a great place to start. But what gives Travis picking the excitement, the rhythmic energy, the drive, the syncopation is when the finger and the thumb do not play at the same time. I cannot imagine a better explanation, demonstration of what syncopation actually is. Syncopation is a fancy word that just means accenting a beat that is not normally accented. At its very most basic form, syncopation is just that. Accenting a beat that is not normally accented. And in Travis picking, because the finger and the thumb are working together, we get to feel that. If I pluck the index finger with the thumb, those are beats that are normally accented. If my finger plays a beat in between those thumb hits, then it's syncopation. There could not be a more clear example of what syncopation means, and I love that it's sort of embodied in the hand, so it's not abstract, it's just, yes, here is the thumb that sets up the back and forth tick tock, tick tock. If you accent one of those beats, it's not syncopation, because those are the beats that are normally accented. If you drop something in between, then it's syncopation. And that's exactly what we're missing with this sort of default accompaniment. I would love to hear a little kick. Did you hear the extra little beat? It comes after the third thumb hit. 1, 2, 3, and boom. 1, 2, 3, and boom. 1, 2, 3, and boom. Just like that. 1, 2, 3, pick there. This gives us what I would call is the closest thing that I can come up with to the default accompaniment version of Travis picking. And sure, it'll take a bit to master this, just like it takes a little while to master anything. But once you have it, you've got it forever, and you can use it on many of the songs that you might find yourself playing in a jam session. You've got to walk that lonesome valley. You've got to walk it by yourself. Nobody else can walk it for you. You've got to walk it by yourself. So there you have it. This was a great question, Anthony. Thank you very much. And although I did my best typing that out, you can see why I really was looking forward to showing instead of telling. And Anthony, I hope that helps. And I hope it helps anyone who might be wondering that same question or in the Americana course and wondering how it applies to some of the music outside the course. So thanks again, Anthony, and I hope that helps. All right. So let's see. I think we probably have time for one, perhaps two more questions. If you have a burning question in mind, now's the time to drop it in the chat. Okay. Let's see. Oh yes, this is a great one. shout out to anybody who is heading over to Sicily for the Sicily Ukulele Hideaway. That's happening in August. I'm also going to be at the Ukulele Festival of Great Britain. So a bit of travel this summer for me, and I hope to see some of you along the way. That would be cool. I was thinking of Sicily because this next question is from the lesson on Santa Lucia. Such a beautiful melody. And that's just the B section of it. This question comes from Justin, who's working on the solo arrangement of Santa Lucia from the Ukulele Way. This is in the Ukulele Way Book 4. And yes, you do get access to all of the 6 books of the Ukulele Way when you subscribe to the Ukulele Way through Uketropolis. I had always wanted to write a method for solo ukulele. Solo ukulele meaning you're playing the melody and the accompaniment at the same time. This is the other side of the coin from a jam session. This is the polar opposite of a jam session. And it's all good. I love jam sessions. And I also love being able to sit on my own and have just me and the ukulele play something that sounds complete. And the juggling act there is that when I'm alone and I don't have all my friends with me to play the other parts, I still want to hear the chords and I want to hear the melody. I want to hear them all blending together. When I imagine myself in a jam session, I imagine myself in a crowded room, a loud, boisterous, happening place where we're playing our favorite songs, everybody's having a good time, smiling, having a beer and eating pizza. I think that's on my mind because this just happened over at the Denver Uke Fest just a few weeks ago, and I had a great time. It was an open mic, and everybody was, everybody was there to see one another, to enjoy a social setting. The ukulele is perfect for that. And then when I imagine myself playing solo ukulele, I literally imagine myself on a dock on a lake with nobody around, just me sitting on the dock of the bay, and just playing for my own enjoyment. That's sort of like the ideal setting to me, the sort of idyllic dream of being alone but with my ukulele and being happily alone, sort of me time, Solo ukulele is great for me time, me musical time. And so arrangements like this one, Santa Lucia, really bring out the lyrical side of the ukulele that you don't get to explore necessarily, really ever, in a loud, boisterous jam session where everybody's having a drink and eating pizza. It's just not the right setting for that. So Justin has a question about this arrangement, a very specific question about measures 9, 10, and 11, which you've already heard me play. He says, these open strings in measure 9 give a beautiful, sustained kind of lyricism. But then in measure 11, it's closed chords right here. These sound very choked off and choppy, he says. He says it's partly because I'm not very good at moving from this one, F6, to this one, D minor 7. But he says even when I get the timing right, it still sounds staccato in a way that's kind of jarring from the previous bars. So how can I get these three measures to talk to one another in a more musical way? I think that's a really nice way to frame it. How can I get these measures to get along? How can I get them to talk to one another? And then a very different personality here. You know, one sounds very disconnected as opposed to the other, which sounds very warm and resonant. Well, this is a great question. It's this move from straight across on the 5th fret to the D minor 7. That's the heavy lift, isn't it? That's where it's nearly impossible to connect those two things in an unbroken way. And so what can we do? Two things come to mind. First of all, you could, my first suggestion is sort of a technical suggestion. And my second suggestion is more of an aesthetic suggestion. So a technical way around this would be to roll the chords slightly, especially the D minor 7. People, in my experience, students often forget about the power of slightly breaking a chord, slightly waterfalling the chord from the 4th string down to the 1st string. Now that's a lot of waterfall. That's very separated. You don't have to do that much. It could be almost like a harp. Sometimes we get into the trap where we think that we have to play all of the notes in a chord simultaneously. You know, I'd have to do this. That's very hard. To just land right on all fours at the same time. I can do it, but just barely. And not every time. But if I take a little moment, just a microscopic moment on that D minor 7, not only does it sound a bit more sort of harp-like and gentle, which I like. In fact, I could do that on both chords. It gives me a microscopic moment of extra time because when I start the roll, only one note actually has to be in its place. And although this is taking place in a very short period of time, it allows my other fingers a microsecond to catch up to the moment. And so if I eyeball where my first note needs to be, I can make sure that that one finger gets to where it needs to go. In that case, it's the 2nd fret of the G string. That's how I would practice, by the way. I would go from the 5th fret and just play the one note that needs to be in place first. I would call that the guide finger for this particular moment. If I can get that much, if I can get just that much, then the rest of the fingers can come in very soon after, but not simultaneously with that first note. That would be an extreme kind of example. Or I could tighten it up over time as I get more comfortable. And in the context, it'll just go by, I think, very smoothly. The audience doesn't need to know the backflips that I'm doing in order to give them a smooth musical experience. The audience just thinks, oh, doesn't that sound lovely and harp-like and lyrical? Right? I'm getting myself out of a jam there and at the same time selling it as a musical effect. Double whammy. The second bit of advice, or the second approach that I'd recommend here, is a little different. This one is more conceptual. I would say maybe just lean into the way it sounds. Lean into the difficulty. Lean into the problem and just own it. If these chords sound very staccato, why not just embrace the contrast? If you do it very intentionally, it might just work. If I do this very big, when I play that, I think of Pavarotti, singing at the top of his lungs. That's that's my Pavarotti impression. Now on YouTube for all time. But then what if at this moment, because I cannot play the next three chords in the same style, what if I just embrace that contrast? And really do it intentionally, really exaggerate the contrast so that it doesn't seem to the audience like I'm trying and failing to make it sound like Pavarotti. I'm clearly trying to make it sound like little clouds. Poof, 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 So what if I go from Pavarotti to little cotton balls? I kind of like the contrast. It's almost like I'm singing out loud, la da 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 dee, and then I suddenly come close and whisper in your ear, bum 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 ba da dee. There's something about that is kind of cool. It's like a little intimate moment where I tell you a secret right after I've told everyone a big story, and then I actually tell you the truth and I just whisper it in your ear. There is a story that you can tell yourself here that makes that phrasing, the natural phrasing of this moment, make sense. Maybe one solution is to lean into that rather than try to solve the problem. Solve the problem by embracing what the ukulele is encouraging you to do, which is maybe tell a different story from the one that you're telling. So there's two ways to go about it there. One is a technical solution, and one is just a change of perspective. Justin, I really think you're onto something here. I love that you're wrestling with these important musical questions. This is a great piece to do it with, and I hope that helps. Thanks. So yeah, Sicily. Every time I say to people, I'm going to Sicily to teach for a week in the summer, they say, Sicily in the summer? Are you nuts? Yeah, it's going to be hot. But we're playing our ukuleles. Ukuleles sound best in warm temperatures. I think, anyway. That's been my experience. Well, folks, we're just about out of time for today. There is so much happening at Uketropolis right now, between the launch of Ragalele, which is, as I say, making some waves over in the community. Go check that out. You can listen to some of the music for free, and you can try it out 30 days. If you don't love it, you can get your money back. There's absolutely no risk to trying out ragalele, and it might just sort of open up a whole new, musical life for you. And we've also got Loudly coming up. That's our global ukulele orchestra. We've got a rehearsal coming up on the, I'm just checking the date so I don't get it wrong. It is 1 week from today on June 13th, and we're going to be playing this time a multi-part classical arrangement by request, and I'll tell you more about that at the rehearsal. It's free to join this band, by the way. There are over 1,200 people from all over the world in the band. So go to ukuloudly.com or just go to uketropolis.com/ukuloudly. You can join the band, be part of the next rehearsal and part of the next recording project that we're doing. And Ukeheads is still going strong. We've officially released our album. We're getting press. We're getting newspaper articles. New one came out yesterday. TV stories. We've been on the radio with this project, on national radio, and things are going really well. So if you have Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music and you want to hear some ukulele music that is a little different to what you might expect from the ukulele, check out Ukeheads. And I will see folks in Great Britain for the Ukulele Festival of Great Britain coming up soon. And those who are coming to join me in Sicily, bring something cool to wear. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Paul and Sayara have been here from my staff at Uketropolis. Thank you to you both. And thanks to you guys for showing up for another Uketropolis Live. I look forward to seeing you at the next one. And don't forget to check out my interview with Siley Tonk, just out today on the Uketropolis podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, have a listen, keep on strumming, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now, everybody.